Now, the president of Harvard is a woman by the name of Claudine Gay. And she's been in the news this past week for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, because she was one of a number of university presidents who couldn't say unequivocally that it would violate their campus code of conduct to call for the genocide of Jews. She said that, well, we would need to know the context before it violates the code of conduct. And so most people thought, well, that's insane. That's totally. How are you the president of Harvard? And then we found out after that it turns out much of her academic career, if you can call it that, she has been plagiarizing other actual scholars. And among them is my next guest. Dr. Carol Swain is here. She's a senior fellow for the Institute for Faith and Culture, and she joins us on the phone. Dr. Swain, nice to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
It is. This must have been, so far this past week, a wild week for you. So you learned that you had some of your work stolen. And not only was it stolen, but it was stolen by somebody who's in a very powerful position, the president of Harvard. That's a big deal, isn't it?
It is. And the fact that she's the president of Harvard is a big deal, because I remember during the time I was at Princeton when she was all the talk. At that time, she was a student, but I mean, there was this hotshot person that did quantitative methods, and I heard all about her. I did not follow her career, and I did not realize, certainly, that she had listed passages from my prize-winning book without proper attribution. But when I looked at her subsequent publications, it was in the area where my book was considered the seminal work, that she was building on ideas, that she would have gotten from my book. And there's a citation, she has a citation or two in some of the articles, but she doesn't engage the work. It can be a string of citations, but my work was considered path-breaking, seminal. She was writing in the same area. So I feel that was very harmful to me, because in academia, your statute depends on how many citations you get. And so if someone's drawing on your work or building on your work, or it harms you if they don't acknowledge that.
And the way in which she plagiarized, it's from what I could see, the examples, I mean, she was either copying almost word for word sentences that came from your work, or changing them ever so slightly, but the phrasing was identical, without any quotation marks or any acknowledgement that she was lifting work from you and others, right?
Well, the last count, there were 27 instances. As far as my work, there are 2 instances, and the things that were barred were not, earth-shattering major findings. It was probably just laziness.
Right.
Involved. Yeah, and so it just seemed to be she had a pattern. We wouldn't want to excuse that for anyone, but if she had been some inner-city kid from Detroit, or, like I was a high school dropout, didn't go to high school, somebody that had a disadvantaged background, you think, well, maybe she didn't learn maybe she didn't learn how to do this. But she went to the most elite boarding school in America, Phillips Exeter, and her undergraduate education was at Harvard. She won a prize for her senior thesis, and she won a prize for her dissertation. And I would imagine that she has probably been lifting things all of her career. People have looked at her dissertation. I don't know if they've looked at that senior thesis. So she's a fraud. All of this work seems to be fraudulent, and she's not being held accountable. And this is a person who's not a black descendant of slaves. Her parents are Haitians, comes from a strong middle-class family, and was able to go to the most elite boarding school in America. They cannot indict her because they would have to indict themselves. Harvard would have to indict themselves because that was her undergraduate school, and Phillips Exeter Academy would have to indict itself. She's a product of the elites, and so they're standing by her.
It is, but meanwhile, she's a product of the elites, but it seems that Harvard announced this week that they're protecting her. To your point, they are standing by her, that she's going to stay in the job, that they're going to petition some of these journals in order to change, quote, 4 corrections in 2 articles to insert citations and quotation marks that were omitted from the original publications. They consider this, I guess, just like a big mistake. Is it your impression that she's being protected, despite her elite status, because of her skin color? That seems to be the reason why they're doing this.
She's not being held accountable. Like, who gets to do a do-over? Can you imagine how many people that have been kicked out of schools and fired from their jobs for plagiarism, and they're allowing her to do a do-over? And some people are saying that plagiarism isn't really plagiarism. I think that what Harvard is doing is a disgrace, that they have chosen to protect its first ever black president. They see that as more important than protecting its already tarnished brand. So, I mean, that's what's going on, is they're trying to protect their first black president, who is clearly a DEI advanced person who really has not done any path-breaking work. As far as I can tell, she should not have been tenured ever in the Ivy League, because she didn't produce work to be tenured in the Ivy League.
But Dr. Carol Swain, if Harvard wanted to demonstrate that it was standing up for black achievement, why wouldn't they stand up for you in this instance? You're the one who did the work and had your work stolen. Shouldn't Harvard be standing up for you?
I mean, there was many more people than me that she borrowed from, but my beef has to do with more than just those 2 passages. Mine has to do with the fact that her whole research career, her early career, was in the area where my work was path-breaking, and she didn't engage the work. She didn't write in a way that she gave proper attribution. That's not plagiarism directly. That's something like stolen valor.
It's amazing, isn't it? What is going on with these institutions, Dr. Swain?
And I can tell you what some of it is. It's like, hey, I'm a country girl. I'm a mutt, and she's a purebred pedigree. And so I think that they prefer someone of their pedigree to someone, that may be kind of rough around the edges, that speaks with a funny accent. So I think it's social class as much as anything else.
Yeah, it's amazing
and
to see.
I was not so impassioned. Initially, I was thinking, oh, well, she just made a mistake. Anyone can make a mistake. But then when more and more instances became public, it was clear that there was a pattern. And then when I actually read her work, I saw that she didn't engage my work or cite me the way that I thought she should have. But I don't just blame her. I would blame the system. I'd blame her colleagues. And I believe that she got advanced solely, because she was the right pedigree. I also believe it hurts every American, not just racial and ethnic minorities, because there are plenty of people who have worked very hard to attain the positions that they're in, and no one ever gives them a break. Why should this woman get so many breaks? She's not qualified to be the president of any university, much less Harvard.
Well, what is the message that it sends to the students on campus in terms of how they should conduct themselves as academics?
It doesn't just send a bad message to the students, where we learn that she herself was involved in suspending at least one student who had plagiarized, and that in the last year or 2, I believe 27 students have been suspended for plagiarizing or punished for plagiarizing. But think about those middle school and high school students that English teachers are trying to teach how to properly document and how to write papers. If at Harvard University, which used to be considered a world-class university, if it's okay for their president to be a serial plagiarizer, I'm not sure what the correct expression is, but if that's okay, then it sends a signal that American education is just totally in the toilet.
Well, and it also makes the open inquiry and education a very dull process. We don't innovate. We don't learn new things. We just copy and steal from other people who've done work in the past. And that's not the way forward as a country, is it?
No, and I've had, at least one lawyer offer to take a case pro bono if I want to sue her. That's not my thinking at the time, but I'm pretty upset, and I do believe that she should resign. And I don't know if I would get over my being upset until they actually address the problem, and so far they haven't seemed inclined to do so.
No. So my suspicion here, and thank you, Dr. Swain, for your time today. I really appreciate this. My suspicion here is Harvard is hoping for this all to die down. They basically said this week she's not going anywhere. They're going to put up with the fact that there's going to be some conversations like the one you and I are having for a week or so. And their expectation is that they'll be able to ride this out and nobody will care, and they'll be able to look back and say, look, we didn't fire a black woman, so now we win. I mean, that's I think what they're planning.
Well, they didn't count on the Carol Swain factor and the fact that I'm one of those persons directly impacted, in some ways impacted more than the others, because many of the people she plagiarized from are on the faculty of Harvard or other elite institutions, and they're saying, oh, it's okay. I don't care that she borrowed my work. So they're giving her a free pass for taking their work. Well, I'm not giving her a free pass, and there's at least maybe 2 or 3 other people that are not going to give her a free pass. I don't think it's going to blow over as quickly as they think. And right now I have a bee in my bonnet, and I'm not inclined to let it go until justice pours down like a mighty river. And so, right now I'm not willing to walk away from it. I realize that it will be old news, and so maybe there won't be interviews, but right. She'll be my poster child for DEI, and she will find her way in every talk I give about the subject.
Well, God bless you for it, because in the end, I think if you can hold this system accountable, it's going to benefit all of us. So keep that bee in your bonnet, and thank you so much, Dr. Carol Swain. Really appreciate your time today.